Hello, family. This is Monica Wisdom of the Monica Wisdom Podcast, and I am excited to bring this episode to you today. This is a conversation I've been thinking about for a while. I was actually going to record a whole different episode for, but something sparked in me that, we need to have this moment and this conversation. It's about the power of being around your people. And in this episode, we're going to talk about friendship and community and all of that I've observed about those two components of life in the past couple of years. So when we talk about friendships and community, we often think about the people we grew up with or the family we were born into. Those relationships can hold deep meaning, and sometimes they're rooted more in tradition than connection. We stay out of loyalty to the past, sharing old stories, laughing about high school memories, and retelling of college adventures and things that happened when we were young. And beyond that, beyond the nostalgia, sometimes those relationships just stop growing. And if we stay in those relationships for too long, we stop growing. I see a lot of women that I've coached and I've had conversation with, especially entrepreneurs and creatives, say things like, my family supports me, but they don't understand my journey. Or I can't talk to my friends about my dreams because they just don't relate. I get it. I felt it. I've lived it. I was lucky in the sense of my father was an entrepreneur and so were his friends. So I understood early finding your people wasn't about who you knew the longest, but about the people who see who you're becoming. Not everyone you've walked with is meant to walk with you. That can be a hard truth, but it's the one thing we have to face if we want to grow. We often confuse proximity with intimacy. Let me say that again. We confuse proximity with intimacy. But true community isn't about who you've been around the longest. It's about who can hold space for your evolution, for your growth, for your dreams. Your people don't have to understand every detail of your path to be supportive, but they must be committed to your forward movement, just like you are. We've seen the power of alignment before. When we look at the civil rights movement, the time when Black people across many generations and many parts of the country came together with a shared vision, shared values, and actions. That's the kind of community that shifts culture. We've done it before, and I'm going to tell you, we got to get back to that. We have to get back to being in a trusted community that with mutual love and reciprocity. I remember when I had my tribe in my 20s and my 30s, it was awesome. We loved the arts and gathering in creative spaces, and we supported one another. It was so natural and nourishing, and it was very communal. We could go out by ourselves because we knew we were going to see somebody in our crowd. If somebody had an art opening, we were there. If somebody had a restaurant opening, we were there. If somebody had a poetry reading, we were there. If I had an event, they were there. And not only were they there, they were very supportive. I remember I used to do an event in Atlanta called, oh my God, I can't remember, called Soul's Kiss. And it was a live music event. And we had a guest who was an industry giant be the host. And then we would have up-and-coming people as the acts. And the one thing I found, and this is when I was working in the music industry with Yuba Records, that the music community down there supported each other. When I went down there, I talked to one or two people, and they were like, sure, whatever you need, send us your stuff and we'll send it out. So they would send my flyer of this girl from the Lou hanging out in Atlanta. They didn't know me. I didn't know them. But there was a shared vision for everybody to move forward. So they're sending my flyer out to 10,000 people, which helped me become a top event for the time that I was doing it. And I love that. And I remember in my youth here, we had the same type of things. And I don't know what has shifted, but something has shifted. Maybe it's social media, maybe it's politics, maybe it's because we've traded connection with curated performances. Everything now is for the gram. We commune in the comment sections over community gatherings, like real community gatherings. We follow each other online, but rarely check on each other offline. That's not how it used to be. Online was that space where you just chatted with people you didn't know, you met new people, but your crew, your homies, they had your phone number. And gossip was once limited to kitchen tables and gossip rags. I remember the National Enquirer was a thing. Not everybody read it, but somebody read it and told you all the business that was happening with the celebrities. But now it's monetized content. We have places like the Shade Room and these other different places that degrade us, in my opinion, as Black people and use our pain to profit from. And they have millions and millions of followers and they make millions of dollars a year off of us, and it's really sad. And I'm not saying this to judge anybody, make your money, but it's an observation and it's a reminder that we are out of alignment with what makes us whole. It is, and it's not even just my opinion. According to the U.S. Surgeon General, the previous one, Vivek Murthy, the country is facing a growing loneliness epidemic. This social disconnection, I can't get my words right. This social disconnection is posing a serious threat to our mental and physical health, according to him in 2023. Now, that was just 2 years ago, and I know now with all the happenings, it is not declining. And it's not just about being physically alone, but it's emotional isolation. It's about not feeling safe enough to be seen. And so this is becoming a real problem. And people talk about the off yourself, I'm not going to say the word, rates are increasing, especially amongst young boys and gay and trans kids. And so we really have to understand that this idea of the comment section and all the things is really having real life consequences for people. And we're seeing people who across generations and are turning to more self-sufficiency. Like they want to be homesteaders and just live with them and their partner. And they would rather raise chickens than build friendships. Posting online instead of curating spaces of belonging. Inspiration used to be from, we used to get inspired by our dreams, by muses, by ideas that would come into our head, and we'd write books and write stories. But now everything has become about trends and Pinterest boards and algorithms. And algorithms are designed for you to only see yourself. There's no diversity of thought inside of our algorithms. And that's why you see different versions of the same thing over and over and over again. You might see a purse over here, then you see 10 purses, then you see 20 purses. Next thing you know, you're buying a purse. Or you're seeing this event or that event, and you say, oh, I got to do that too. So FOMO is just off the charts. And this has its consequences. It really does. And it's hard to be honest with yourself when the world is asking you to be someone else, right? When you have to be Black excellence all the time, or you have to be humble all the time, or you have to be a Christian all the time. And I'm putting up air quotes because these identities have moved beyond our real calling, right? It's an identity because we want to belong to something bigger than ourselves. And so we get caught up in these groups, this group of thought. But like your mama used to say, that ain't your friend. That ain't your friend. Because here's why I say that. When I was, and I'm getting off topic, but when I was a hairstylist, I talked to women every single day, love them to death, miss them dearly. But I was their confidant, right? They were telling me things that they don't tell their husbands, their friends that they hang out with all the time. They don't tell their family. They confide in me. And I get it's part of the job, but I was in that industry for 3 decades. And it is a definite shift. It used to be a girl's mama was her best friend. But now it's a space, and it's not all families, but it's not that closeness because they have such a divide within the families of diversity of thought. You have to think like we think. These are our traditions. This is what we're going to do, and yada, yada, yada. There's no space for the kid that's different, right? There's no space for the idea that's different. There's no space for the career that is different. And it's strange because people fought for civil rights so that people had choices. But now we condemn people for their choices. And that's why I'm such a strong proponent of the soft life in the way that I'm describing it. Not that you have to do it my way or any of that, but a different perspective of the soft life besides just a self-care routine or, a skincare routine. Now everybody has a skincare routine. Now everybody has everything. There's a camera in the bathroom. There's a camera in the kitchen. There's a camera everywhere. Like, people are talking about the people spying on us. We are spying on ourselves. We are documenting everything we do, from the food we eat to the shoes we put on to all the things. That is not real life. And that doesn't leave space for inspiration or connection with yourself. Because you're doing it, either you're doing it to monetize it, or you're doing it to become famous, or you're doing it because it's about connection. Now, unless you're doing it for business, like I'm on social media for business, but I don't put my business out there because it's nobody's business. And I know that's a part of my upbringing that, my mama said, keep home at home. But there's also something special about being discreet. There's something special about having a surprise element to your life. And there's something endearing about keeping things to yourself. That's why the gossip rags were so popular, because celebrities didn't talk about themselves. Now they got to talk about everything just to stay relevant. And we emulate that, even though it's not part of our job to be a celebrity. So something is off and something is disconnected. And I'm laughing about it because it's comical, but it's really not funny. It's really sad because it's impacting people in ways that we were never prepared for. And now with the onslaught of AI and these level of technologies that are speeding up, people are going to go back into identity crisis like it was in the early 80s. People are not going to know who they are. And it's going to get bigger and louder and bigger and louder. And when it gets bigger and louder, there's going to be a mass crash for emotional wellness. And that's why getting support, getting help, building community about things that you love to do, things that inspire you off of social media. Have you ever heard of the book, The Artist's Way? I just found it on my bookshelf again, and I started going through it. And it's by a woman named Julia Cameron. I put the link in the show notes. But her book is so powerful. Years ago, I took she came in town to do a class, and it was a real small class. It was about 30 people, and I was lucky enough to get a ticket for it. And she took us through a 3-day training, and it was just all about tapping into our imagination. And I'm really on this imagination kick right now. Tapping into our imagination, our ingenuity, not copying and pasting our whole life. AI is good to use as a tool to speed up a process, to edit your work. But sometimes you got to tap into your creativity to see what you're supposed to bring out. And not tapping into that inner genius, it just makes everything so repetitive. And that's why I love the soft life, this conversation, because it's really about a reconnection. It's a radical act of reconnecting with yourself. Self-discovery is about finding out about you and what's important to you and what matters to you. And not based on traditions of family, not based on traditions of friendships that you've had for 30 years. I've had friendships that I've had for 30 years, but I met them as adults. I don't have childhood friendships. That's a whole nother story. But I have friendships that I've been in for 30 years. But here's the beauty of my friendships is they get me and I get them. And it's not a thing where we have to be together, go everywhere together all the time, but we're there for each other as true friends. And I can go to them and say anything about anything, and there's no judgment. They might say, girl, you crazy. But they're like, we love you no matter what. And I promise you, I come up with some ideas. But I have even noticed that my creativity, especially on this journey that I'm on right now, my creativity has been stifled. There used to be times where I would write, like I have short stories and poems and all the things, but now I write is stuff for business. And I'm so off balance with that I'm so business focused because I really want everything to work out. I want to be perfect. I want to do all these things. And I never had that before, this desire for perfection. I always chose creativity over it being perfect and perfectly seen. And I don't know where I got that from. And I think it has a lot to do with spending so much time on social media, because my goal is to build a nomadic life where I can live anywhere and not have a place, have a home, but to be able to pop off anywhere and not have to make money in one stationary place. That's the overall goal for me. But doing that's building an online community or building communities outside of where I live. And so because of that, I'm on social media a lot. And so I think it has really impacted my creativity, which is why I'm bringing this up and why I said I got to make a shift and let me take people along with me. And that's why the soft life from my perspective is not just about an aesthetic. Like I said, it's a radical act of reconnection. Softness invites you back to yourself, beyond the filters, beyond the performances, beyond the projections. It reminds you of what matters, your peace, your purpose, and your people, like your people. To live softly is to choose alignment over approval. It's not about other people approving of your life. It's about you being in alignment with your purpose. To seek out spaces where you are welcomed because of who you are, not because of what you offer. Simply because you're breathing. And to build a community with people who reflect your wholeness, not your wounds or your memories or nostalgia. Like you want to be in a space where people see you past everything else. And that's the beauty of community. And you don't have to do this life alone. You don't have to do it alone. You were never meant to be alone. Jesus had a crew. You know what I'm saying? He walked his journey, but he had a crew, and he had people who believed in him from all around the places, and people who were looking for him and searching for him. Now, I'm not going to talk about religion, but let's just call it what it is. Jesus had a crew, and they had honest conversations with one another. He told him, "You were going to betray me." So I just want to say that, really, as we close out this episode, I really want you to examine your friendships and be clear, not to say get rid of this person or get rid of that person, but just be clear on who they are in your life and what they're there for. My brother used to tell me, don't ever think that you're special. Okay, he said, don't ever think that you're special, because what people do to other people, they will also do to you. So just be clear about the people in your life and see the friendship for what it is and the community that you're in for what it is, not for what you want it to be, right? Don't look at it as a place where you are, that you can grow in those spaces. Because if you haven't had a growth spurt in the spaces that you're in, you might want to look for some new spaces. If you don't feel safe enough to share your innermost thoughts with people that you're around, you might want to look for some new people. And I know in these big old grown ages, we say we can't make friends, but we can. I have made friends in my adult life, in my big grown life, who I think we might not be every day, but it's people that I could call and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And we can really have honest conversations about life. Not things, not situations, but life conversations that help us to grow and to see ourselves from new ways, because that's what community does. Because people are our mirrors, they are reflection, and they help us propel forward if they are really about supporting us and our dreams as we see them, not how they see them for us. So before we close out, I want you to, like I said, think about who makes you feel safe, who makes you feel like your full self, who drains you, who inspires you, and who sees the version of yourself that you're becoming. Because you need a true cheerleader who walks this journey and sees what you're becoming so they can remind you who you are when you're not feeling yourself. So remember, people are not just a luxury or a moment or an Instagrammable situation. True friendships are sacred, and true friendships are places of growth, peace, and safety. So thank you for listening to the Black Women app. I keep saying, maybe she's ready to come off sabbatical. Because Black Women Amplify keeps coming back in this conversation. But thank you for listening to the Monica Wisdom Podcast. I hope that you go to the show notes and take advantage of all that is there, as well as I'm going to put in the information about the epidemic of loneliness and isolation from the Department of Health and Human Services when Biden was in office. And I'm also going to put a link to the Reframe Your Narrative audio workshop, as well as the Soft Life Blueprint Journal, so that you can also take advantage of that and take the next steps in your conversation with yourself. Anyway, have an amazing day. Sending you light, love, peace, and blessings. This is Monica Wisdom, and I'm out.